Did you know that Sun God Nika, aka Sun God Luffy, is based on Sun God Ra? Oda loves Egypt. Just look at Alabasta and all its lore. It's clearly inspired by Egypt. The interesting part though is that Sun God Ra had a high priest named Imhotep. Imhotep, Im-sama sound similar, right? Well, Sun God Ra and Imhotep both came from a major city of ancient Egypt named Heliopolis, and Heliopolis is known as the City of the Sun. Unfortunately, Heliopolis was destroyed, and most of the information about this City of the Sun comes from surviving records. Now that I know you're gonna watch this video, hit the like button because I have concrete proof where Imu-sama's from, what Imu-sama's based on, and what the One Piece could be. Let's jump into a time machine and go way back to figure out how this all started. Let's figure out where Im-sama's from. The answer is pretty simple. Im-sama is from the moon. So during the whole Skypiea arc, we saw Luffy fought the fake god Enel on Skypiea, and afterwards Enel decided to take that arc maxim and go straight to the moon. Later on in the manga, we got a whole cover story on Enel's adventure there, and it's pretty interesting. So during this cover story, we saw that there was an ancient city, there was hieroglyphs, and all sorts of indications that people once lived on the moon. It wouldn't make sense if there was an ancient city without some kind of civilization, or these drawings and hieroglyphs without people to draw them. It's interesting because during this cover story, we see an old man, some kind of doctor, operating on cyborgs on Karakuri Island. What we need to know is that Karakuri Island is obviously on the blue planet, not on the moon. What's interesting is towards the very end of the cover story, we see Enel use electricity powers and powered up the cyborgs that seem to be the exact same as what the old man was operating on. What this implies is that there was an ancient civilization of these moon-like robots, these Moonanites, that went from the moon to the blue planet. What I really like about these robots and these cyborgs is that they actually have emotions, unlike Germa 66. But anyways, seeing how this old man was operating on robots on Earth while the same robots were on the moon, this implies that the technology that they see on the One Piece blue planet came from the moon. This also explains why Vegapunk is so highly advanced and why the Godosei and the Marines would want to take advantage of him. His technology is from the moon. Another important detail is during this cover story, we see that there's a hieroglyph explaining that the people from the moon were lacking natural resources, so they came to the blue planet. When they say the blue planet, they're obviously talking about the Earth of One Piece. With that being said, we now know that the moon people went from the moon to the Earth, bringing technology with them. What further supports this is there's literally space pirates that we're seeing in Enel's cover story. They have their own Jolly Roger crew members ship. It's very interesting, and I think it actually mimics in real life how people think aliens came from the moon and created some of our technology or structures such as pyramids. And the nail in the coffin as to why Emu's from the moon is because the celestial dragons literally wear spacesuits. They look like NASA astronauts. These guys have a big bubble white suit. It's a hint and it's an indication that they're from the moon. They try to play it off, Oda tries to play it off as if they can't breathe the same air as lowly commoners, but that's not what it is. They're from the moon. And if you take the name celestial dragons and look at the word celestial, it relates to outer space and the heavens. The celestial dragons are from the moon. So to summarize the first half of this theory, it's very evident that the celestial dragons, including Emu, came from the moon lacking natural resources. They brought their technology with them and they acted like space pirates and took the land of the blue planet. And now onto the second half of this theory, I'm going to prove that the alien Im-sama is based on Imhotep. You guys may know from my past videos, I did say that Sun God Nika is based on Sun God Ra. You can see this in my Moon God video as well as a collab I did with Marshall D. Preach. But it turns out that Sun God Ra had a high priest named Imhotep. I think this sounds oddly familiar considering that the final villain Luffy might face is Im-sama. We have Im-sama, Imhotep, it's pretty close. Now I think it's really interesting that Imhotep is a high priest considering that the Godosei call themselves gods and they treat Im-sama like a god. When Im-sama was walking up to the empty throne, they bowed their knee and they treated him like some sort of priest, some sort of important figure. But I think that Im-sama is acting as a false god and the true god of One Piece was Sun God Nika. Im-sama rules from the shadows and sits on an empty throne symbolizing power. Luffy's gonna eventually fight and oppose Im-sama for the real god of the world. So we do know that centuries ago there was a warrior known as Sun God Nika, and I'm led to believe that Im-sama had a great battle with him. The story of Imhotep states that he had some type of relationship with Sun God Ra, so it's quite possible that he tricked and betrayed Sun God Nika. And this would come to no surprise considering so many One Piece arcs have characters betraying kings and citizens of the land for their own personal personal gain for their own personal benefit. One thing I always notice about the world of One Piece is the average pirate doesn't really act like the stereotypical pirate. Instead, the real pirates seem to be the world government. They enslave people, they rain terror on people, they steal land, they hate what they are. So with that being said, if the celestial dragons are from the moon, this essentially means that Im-sama came from the moon and wanted to steal world power from Joy Boy. Like there's endless red flags that Dressrosa foreshadows how the ancient kingdom fell. For an example, Sugar's use of wiping people from existence in order for Doflamingo to steal land and power. Im-sama did the same exact thing through the Void Century. And this belief that Imhotep is a false god isn't new either, because a TV show called Stargate SG-1 had Imhotep portrayed as a false god and an alien. Basically exactly what we're saying in this theory. And another piece of media that would agree with our theory is the movie franchise The Mummy. And that's because their major antagonist is Imhotep, much like what One Piece is probably dealing with. A funny thing about the movie Mummies is Imhotep was in love with a woman named Nefertiri. Sound familiar, right? Nefertiri, Nefertari? What adds to that concept is Im-sama brought up Vivi's poster right before the Godosei asked what light they need to extinguish. So all in all, One Piece can relate to the Mummy by having Im-sama be connected to Nefertari Vivi, like how Imhotep was connected to Nefertiri. Now let's talk about how sun god Ra was from the ancient city Heliopolis, which is known as the City of the Sun. Much like the ancient kingdom in One Piece, Heliopolis was completely destroyed, and most information about the city comes from surviving records. Shout out to the GOAT Professor Clover, because his studying on the poneglyphs, aka surviving records, allowed him to learn about the ancient kingdom. So maybe to some extent, the City of the Sun Heliopolis inspired the ancient kingdom, and the surviving records about it inspired the poneglyphs. Now many people do believe that Sun God Nika and Joy Boy are related in some kind of context, especially when you consider that Luffy is both Joy Boy and Nika. And another popular theory is that Joy Boy was the king of the ancient kingdom that was completely wiped from existence, minus details from poneglyphs. So with that being said, Sun God Ra being the king of the city Heliopolis relates to One Piece by having Sun God Nika being the king of the ancient kingdom. Now I'm not saying that the ancient kingdom is going to be named Heliopolis, but I am saying that Oda's going to draw a lot of inspiration from Heliopolis and apply it to the ancient kingdom. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. It's also said that Imhotep is the god of medicine, and a super famous theory in the One Piece community is that Im-sama is immortal and from the Void Century. These two things go hand in hand, considering the Surgeon of Death, Dr. Law, knows his medicine and has an eternal life devil fruit. If Oda was inspired by the legend of Imhotep, it would make sense to have Im-sama be a god of medicine, some kind of doctor with the operation of eternal youth surgery done on him. This yet again connects to the Mummy because Imhotep was resurrected more than once, effectively making him immortal just like the Im-sama theory. Now let's talk about the One Piece, because I believe the One Piece is the empty tomb of Im-sama. Legend has it, Imhotep's tomb, which should have been in Egypt, was never found. No matter which pyramid the researchers were searching in, it was completely missing, leaving a lot of people to wonder if he ever died or if he ever lived in the first place. If Oda is indeed truly inspired by Imhotep, maybe the poneglyphs on Laugh Tale explain how Im-sama never died. I would even go as far as to say that maybe the Godosei tried to fake Im-sama's death, and there's an empty tomb or empty sarcophagus sitting on Laugh Tale. I could see Roger making it to Laugh Tale, and he laughed seeing the story of Joy Boy in the Great War, as well as seeing that Im-sama actually managed to fake his death. Because as Charles Baudelaire once said, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. Im-sama's hiding in the shadows, and if you're not a member of the Godosei or Doflamingo, you'd have to learn this knowledge from Laugh Tale. One idea I've always had is that Buggy goes with Luffy to Laugh Tale, and just like how he displayed Marineford War to the world, he could display Laugh Tale and the One Piece to the world. Because both Laugh Tale and the One Piece are the secret, impossible to find concepts, so for them to show this to the world and show everyone it does actually exist, this would help the world turn upside down. And maybe it'll even be Robin's decision to show the world that Joy Boy was killed by Im-sama and the whole world is being ran by Im-sama. Regardless, we know that the One Piece isn't actually Roger's treasure and it's actually Joy Boy's treasure. Given that poneglyphs explain where to find the One Piece and what happened during the Void Century, the One Piece must be related to both the Void Century and Im-sama. I believe this one piece of information that the whole world is searching for is the existence of Im-sama. So to summarize today's mega theory, Im-sama was lacking natural resources and he came from the moon to the blue planet. Being a typical pirate, he decided to deceive the world and steal the world power. He killed Sun God Nika at the city of Heliopolis and had the Eternal Youth operation done on him. When Luffy goes to Raftel, he will learn the one piece of information nobody has, Im-sama. The world will turn upside down because the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.